and my mom was disabled. And so I grew up with uh, uh, younger brother and an older sister. When I was a kid, I had a bad speech impediment. Uh, in fact, if I wanted to say hi, Kenya, it would take me almost 2 minutes, and you would just finish my sentence for me because you feel so sad for me. And I felt that was a major accomplishment for me to be able to have a conversation. But as a kid, I was scared to raise my hand in school. I didn't want them to call on me, ask me any questions, because I knew I was going to, I might could get the answer right, but it would take me forever to get it. So I grew up, went to school with three other kids. They wound up getting in trouble. I didn't. I had people in the community, I guess, that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Men that, teachers, coaches, people in the neighborhood that just took to me. And I credit them for where I am today, along with my father. I had a good dad, although he was blind. My dad was an excellent cook. He could fix absolutely anything, and that's really where I get my cooking from. I feel I can cook absolutely anything, and I got it from him. And I always said that, men should be able to cook. You shouldn't depend on people to prepare a meal for you. You should be able to do it yourself. And I just took it to a level where I actually at one time thought I was going to be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I graduated from college summa cum laude after finishing high school, and then I applied for different positions, supervisory positions. Made it through the ranks. Never thought I was going to be chief. My goal was to spend 30 years in the department and see what else was out there. But what brought me to the police department is, growing up in East Nashville, I had a couple of occurrences where my opinion of the police wasn't that good. I had a relative that was actually killed by members of this police department back in 1974. And my first interaction was that was what I saw with our police department. And then at one point in high school, I had some guys show up at my school. I thought they was football recruiters and talk about football. And it was two detectives from the Metro Nashville Police Department. And they held up this picture of this guy. I had a red shirt on, had University of Georgia on it, because that's where I wanted to go play football. And so they said, well, hey, this looks just like you. And I looked at it and I was like, no, all Black people don't look alike. That looks nothing like me. And so they said, well, we know you go to this store. We know you buy this bag of cookies that you spend $1 for. And they were really $1. I would get this bag of cookies. And my friends would call me the cookie monster because you couldn't tell, but I used to eat a lot of cookies. And so they told me, they said, there's a fingerprint on the package that we lifted, and it could either convict you or clear you. Either way, if you'll come down and take a print. And, nervous, I didn't know what to do. I agreed. I went down and took the print. It was negative, but when they made the arrest of the person, he was some 10 years older, looked nothing like me. And I often wonder what would have happened. They told me on the way down, say, hey, if we didn't have this print, we could make a circumstantial case against you. And I was like, wow, it's just scared. And so instead of being one of these people that kind of stands on the sidelines and yells at police or dislikes police, but why don't I become one? Why don't I see if we can be a leader? How can we connect with the community? And then, how do we take that to, I want it to be, it's sort of like playing sports. If you're on the field, you can be part of the action and make a difference. But if you're on the sideline, you just kind of watch it. And I just wanted to be involved. And that's how I became a police officer. And the rest has been history.
Two occurrences, and they both happen to be negative. One, someone in your family losing their life 46 years ago, and then one interaction that actually had to do with you. And it actually happens to so many young Black men and brown boys to this day. And so those two negative impacts you turned into positives. And so to be the second African-American police chief in Nashville, Davidson County, to lead this force, I think that those are probably two things that are still happening to young men today. And they may not turn as much as positive for them, but also can turn down a different road. Um, with that, because you talk about having actually two parents who are disabled too, and so in this community, we've grown. East Nashville is not East Nashville anymore. And so and I can say that because my grandmother his home is in East Nashville, and when I was at college, my mom would talk about, oh, when you come home, it's so many restaurants, and you come back and you be like, what in the world? And then now, I mean, there is a Publix where right next door to what used to be Krispy Kreme Donuts, it's a Starbucks. I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on. And so, but also with our growth of our city comes more crime. And I know you have talked about juvenile crime since the day you walked in. And it's almost been a year since you have taken command. And so, what does from the time of being, young John Drake to the day with juvenile crime, how has that, what does that look like today? Because we're also in COVID, so a lot of things kind of changed. And so, what does that look like?
So what we're seeing is not only here but around the country, but a rise in juvenile crime, a rise in juveniles' lack of accountability, and then with violent crime, we see a lack of conflict resolution when it comes to kids. And it used to be kids would resolve through an argument or maybe a fight, but that fight after was over, you were friends. Now it immediately turns into a violent incident. It turns into sometimes armed occurrences. Then we have kids that are looking to get into vehicles, trying to find change, money, and other things, maybe even weapons. And so they're coming across these weapons, but they're also coming across keys to the vehicles. And so now we're having 10, 11, 12-year-old kids in stolen cars with guns out committing violent crimes, whether it ranges from robberies, carjackings to homicide. And so what we've been doing is we started a robbery initiative. One, we have a do no harm approach because we want to make sure that we have trust within the community, that we build these partnerships, but we also have to deal with those that are breaking the law. And so with that, it's designed to find individuals that are committing these crimes and then bring them to juvenile court or to adult court, because we're seeing adults involved in this as well. But then realizing that we can't arrest our way out of this, what kind of diversionary tactics can we have? And so I created the position of inspector over alternative policing strategies. And so that inspector is heading up the mental health co-response, because it used to be if you call the police and you was having a mental health crisis, you more than likely was going to jail. Now you've been diverted into medical care. We're also looking at group violence intervention to where we can have offenders who may be involved in violent crime come into a meeting with the police, U.S. attorney, the district attorney, and others to say, hey, this is what we know about you. This is the path that you're going down, and this is the sentence we would try to get for you. But then on the other hand, this is how we can help you. We can connect you with this person here. We have people in the room that can offer jobs, can offer a place to live, to try to give them a better way of life, knowing that if they violate it again, they're probably going to be in for more serious trouble. We're also starting juvenile diversion with the Office of Family Safety. Diane Lance is going to head that up. We can't keep arresting kids for minor offenses, curfew, et cetera, and it's really harder on the parents, in my opinion. If the parent can't control the kid now, putting them through juvenile, giving them a pamphlet is not going to help. So how can we help them as well? And so that's in the making. And then also, one of the proudest things that I've done since being a police officer is I oversaw the police athletic league. I did the basketball and golf and helped with football and track. And looking at some of the participants from PAL, they're professional athletes, they're teachers, principals, firefighters, police officers, just doing great things in the community. And so that is coming back in early 2022. We're working on that. And the reason I wanted to be the Police Activities League and not athletic is that everybody don't resonate with athletics. Some people may want to be involved with music, and some want to be involved with art. And so we've talked to pastors. I've talked to a pastor at the Church of Scientology who deals with music. He wants to get involved. I've had discussions with Pastor Fuzz and others. And so we're going to try to just do a whole different spin, because I felt like when we ended the Police Athletic League is that we lost a connection with kids. And more importantly, we lost a connection to families. I've been in communication with Dr. Battle and Judge Calloway in monthly meetings, and how we can form a partnership together to help kids that not only in school, but those that are going through the system. How do we have an exit program designed by all three entities to try to give them the recipe for success as well? And I take that because I had people that stood by for me, that took an interest in me, and that made a difference. And I think by this, it's going to help.
It makes a difference. I want to say too, and I know that last year when you first came about, there was a situation where the officers went into the woman's home. It happened to be in Metro Housing, and it was the wrong place. They were looking for the wrong folks, and you stepped out immediately. Called a wrong, and I know you worked to make that wrong a right. And I want to tell you thank you, because I think that one, you showed accountability for the force. You could have said it was this one department, but as police chief, you said what was wrong and worked to make it right. So I know that there are probably several things that we probably don't know about that you have been working to make some changes to, other than just that, but also to let's talk about diversity. You are African American. You realize that the people who were standing around you did not always look like you or did not look like me. That also means women. Our police force. You are in command of a majority white force. And so what is recruitment like today? And also talk about like the expanding of diversity and some of the things that you added that we did not have before prior to you taking the leadership.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that was true. When I looked at diversity within the police department, it lacked a lot of diversity. Even when I looked at the executive staff, it just wasn't there. And so one of the first things, and not just for diversity, but because of leadership, is that we put some people in place. We have two other deputy chiefs that are African American. So then we have three, counting myself, in the executive role. We have two women on the executive role as well. So that's very good. At one time in this year, we had no female lieutenants, zero. So now we have six, and a seventh one is being promoted. One of those being African American, and because that was all that was available for this round as far as African American women. But the beauty of that is promoting all these women will be in the next couple of years. They'll be going for the captain and commander positions. They'll be going for deputy chief and et cetera. We promoted a lot of diversity within the sergeant ranks, the officers that were there. There was a lot of excitement because I made it intentional, saying that I wanted to promote women and minorities, because the police department has to reflect the community it serves. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that diversity, and every opportunity I've taken to do that. We started a recruitment section. In years past, we had one person that was in recruitment, a sergeant, then we added a lieutenant. We call it a recruitment section. And so I wanted to make really a team of officers that were diverse. Excuse me, well, we had females, males, African American, Hispanic, et cetera, to go out and connect with the community, because people want to talk to, they want to talk to people that resemble them, maybe you can interact with. And
right. The same thing with with health providers. They want to see people who look like them. You also did a good job of adding Kurdish too, because we have such a huge Kurdish community. So you also brought in, that whole community squad that you brought in that speaks well to this community.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started the outreach and community partnerships, and we call it OCOP. And that's where our officers, it's a very diverse unit of Hispanic, Kurdish, Muslim, etc. And when I took over, the Muslim community had said that they didn't have any communication with the police department since about 2004. And so I wanted to make sure that we were able to connect with all the communities that we serve. And so we have Kurdish officers who are reaching out to those communities, Asian, et cetera. And so as we build those relationships, then that community engagement, people are wanting to be a part of our police department. I met two young Hispanic young men at Plaza Mariachi who said they want to be police officers, wanted to take pictures with me. Members from the Kurdish and Muslim community who are really happy about the interaction that we have now. They feel like they have a voice, which is important. And so I want to make sure that we have community engagement and outreach to all of the community.
As you talk about community engagement and outreach, let's talk about the oversight board, because when you came in, you made it your business the first week to go over to the oversight board to sign the agreement. To this day, the oversight board has been working. They have a lot of things at their desk, things that have transpired. Talk about why it is important for you to strike that deal, to basically talk about the importance of the oversight board.
Well, it's very important. And myself being a native Nashvilleian, a citizen of this community, and I believe in our community, they voted overwhelmingly to have a community oversight board. And that's really to oversee the police department for any type of misconduct, any type of policies and procedures that they can help with and review. And so I value that. And it really builds transparency. It builds legitimacy, because people may not always trust the police department, but they have another arm in this community oversight board. Immediately, I wanted to make sure that we had that connection. I wanted to sign the MOU. Even when we have incidents involving officers, where the prior agreement by the prior chief was the dispatchers would notify them of any incident. But what we've been doing is I assigned a liaison for the community oversight board. That way they have a constant connection with the police department. Anything they want, any communication. And so that actually liaison will contact them to say, hey, this is an ongoing situation. This is where it is. Just that extra layer to try to make sure they have what they need. Like any relationship in the beginning, it's a little rocky sometimes. Sometimes we'd have things going on, and I was thinking about what I needed to do, what I needed the department to do, and then, we would put out something, and maybe we hadn't notified the COB about a video, and so with our liaison, we've made sure that that's possible now. That there's no gaps. Just trying to make sure it's a good relationship, because one, it benefits the community. It makes everyone feel good about what we're doing, to know that we're trying to do and striving to do the right thing.
So, so this year you most of your year, 1 year in the midst of this pandemic. A lot of things transpired, but tell us, how has policing been different in this pandemic? And, because like you said to me earlier, you said you got a chance to get out. I don't know how often you actually get to do some quote unquote policing, being that you are the chief, but I know sometimes you do want to roll your sleeves up. And I think it's good to actually see you do that, so in order for you to lead by example, you do have to participate. But what has COVID been like for the police department? Because we know that vaccines are a hot topic. We know that your members are stretched thin. And so talk about what you all, what has it been experienced, and then also too, what we can do to help you all as well, particularly from the Urban League side, because we know that, I mean, we're still community partners with you all. You all came out for us tremendously last year when we did our meals on Meals and Mass, and we thank you all. So we still want to do more things with you. We actually sit in North Nashville, so North Nashville precinct is like diagonally across the street from this office. So tell us what has COVID, because we're still in pandemic, has it been like, and how has it changed policing?
It's changed quite a bit, and thank you for the partnership. And anytime we can partner with the Urban League and any other entity, we want to be a part of the community we serve. But COVID-19's had a big impact on our police department. First and foremost, when I came into the job, we had mask enforcement downtown, where officers literally had to go in the middle of what the White House called ground zero almost of the pandemic. It was just a hotbed for contracting the virus. And so they had to enforce that. We had about 200 officers that contracted the virus or had to be quarantined. What that meant for an already short police department is delayed response times. You may call for service, but instead of having 10 people on a patrol detail, you may have only 4 or 5. And that's for an entire section of town. And so we had to change some things around. We had to come up with a power shift, is what they called it, but we call it just an additional shift now. And that was a shift of officers that came on to augment an already short detail. We had officers that almost died from this illness, were hospitalized. We had one employee that did die, unfortunately, and so I tried to make sure that we got in front, make sure officers got vaccinated, as many as possible. We're about 55% vaccinated, and I wish it was higher than that. But I wanted to get out in front. I took my vaccination. I made it public. Everyone could see me getting mine, because I wanted people to know that, hey, I wanted to lead by example. I didn't want to ask them to do something that I wasn't doing myself. We had to go to online reporting. We're still looking at that as a way of business. For instance, instead of you have a traffic crash, and it's minor crash, no injuries, and you may wait 4 or 5 hours for an officer to respond. To me, that's unacceptable. And so we started crash reporting online. So if you're involved in a crash, there's no argument as to who's at fault, who had the contributing factor. Then you can fill out their report online. And so you can literally leave within minutes and really leave it up to the insurance companies to settle that. Also, there was calls for service that we knew that we had to go online as well. For instance, if you left your bicycle in the yard and you came out and was gone, there's no need to have a police officer respond to your home for that. You can actually fill that out online as well. And so we're actually gonna expand that a lot more with LexisNexis to be able to give people who may not want a police car to come in front of their home, but they can still have a report done as well. Well, one thing I've learned with COVID is we can still have meetings. We had them through Zoom like we're having now. Employees could be highly effective even through Zoom. When I tried it, it was an epic fail. I couldn't wait. One day I was at home, gonna have a meeting. It was a snow day. I had on my uniform top and some shorts and my coffee, and it didn't work.
You can be in so many meetings that way, Chief Drake. You can just have more computer set up and you go from one monitor to the next.
But anyway, we had to buy a lot of PPE. It's just from gloves to hand sanitizer. We were sending officers as far as North Carolina to pick up vats of hand sanitizer, working with local distilleries to get hand sanitizer as well, just to try and keep officers healthy and safe and being able to continue on the job. So it impacted us greatly. We had people that actually quit the profession. They were like, hey, I can't deal with it anymore, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how many did you lose? Like like other professions, like the teachers, they're losing folks as well. So how much did that hurt the department? Because you're already, I think the last conversation we had, you were down 100 police officers. So I'm sure that that also increased that number, correct?
It has. We were down 100, we're down 150 now. But the great thing is some of the strategies that we put in place, making officers feel good about what they're doing, the community engagement is slowed down to a trickle. When I first came in office, I would see resignation letters. It would be sometimes 8 or 9 at a time. People were leaving, going to other places. Now I may see one here or there, just not many. And those that leave are leaving now, one for retirement. They've just hit the end of their career, or
Mhm.
they've had a family situation in another state and they wanted to move back home. And they've actually written me correspondence to say, thank you for what you're doing for us. And thank you for caring about officers, and the department is on the right track. At one time, I felt like I wanted to make sure our officers felt valued. I remember I had a surgical procedure and had a mass taken out of my leg, and I remember a sergeant calling me, and they thought it was cancer, and I thought the sergeant was going to call and say, "Hey, how are you? What can we do to help?" and all these things, and his comments were, you know, when are you coming back to work? Your name's on the calendar. People want to take a vacation, and I'm literally thinking, I may not beat this, you know, if I have it. They're talking about different forms of chemotherapy, and I was like, that's very uncaring. And so as a chief, I call people if I have an officer that's been shot in the line of duty, car has been hit by another vehicle, they're hospitalized, or family is sick, they lose a loved one. I contact them. It's those small things, but it makes them feel good about, you know,
Yes.
the job. And then when they feel good about that, then they go out and they treat people better because they feel good about what they're doing. And that to me is important.
So, while we have been in this COVID process, the state legislature started getting into the business of what police officers were doing, or I'm not gonna say were, but now they officially, the bill has become law with the gun law expanded here in Tennessee. So there's a couple of things that kind of happened when this bill also became law too. We were in the midst of COVID. We already sit as a state as number 5 in the country for domestic violence. And I think actually the same week that the expanded bill became law, around that time they were doing that conversation, there was a shooting in Bellevue with domestic violence situation. Talk about that law. And I know that several associations and sheriffs were against this bill. I want to ask you if you were or not. It doesn't matter. It's law now. But in explaining, because guns have become, I don't really want to say a fashion. As I tell people, we're from the South. We know what guns are. We know what they do. We carry them. Whether it's, I want to say to you legally, but some people do carry them illegally. And so talk about this expanding of this law and the impact it's actually had on Davidson County, because we are a growing county. And as you talked about what an experience that happened in your own life, how does this impact? Because it also coincides also with domestic violence.
It really does. And we've seen our domestic violence homicides pick up this year. Can't say it's in correlation with that. We're still looking at it. I will answer your question. I was against constitutional carry. Actually had a meeting with the governor one-on-one, and I told him I was against it, and he told me most law enforcement was against it. But I don't know who was advising him, but he moved through with it, and I respect his decision. But I think it hurts us down the road. I think one of the problems we have with violent crime is the prevalence of guns. they're easily accessible. What I had mentioned to him was, we punish the ones that steal the guns, but the ones that have the guns that are stolen, there's not a lot of accountability for them. I don't disagree with gun ownership. I'm a gun owner myself, but I disagree with irresponsible gun ownership. You leave them in cars, you leave them where they can be stolen. And I think, that people that have guns stolen should have some type of hefty fine, at least that way as a deterrent. Right now, we have 279 more guns stolen this year than this same time last year. That's 279 more. Yeah, that is, it's absolutely amazing. Violent crime is on an uptick. We've been able to control some of it with some of the things we're doing, but some cities are calling it an epidemic, a state of emergency. I look at it here, when you look at Davidson County, it used to be, and I'm a native here, if you were in traffic and someone cut you off, someone may blow their horn or may shoot you a bird. And you're like, man, they shot me a bird, Now somebody might actually shoot at you. And really, people are anxious, and the first resort is a gun opposed to the last resort. And really, constitutional carry just gave anyone ability to carry a gun without going through any type of training, whether how to use it, how to be safe with it, how to keep it from being stolen. All of the things that you're taught is just not there. And so it's going to be scary on down the road, the impact this law is going to have with the prevalence of guns and the lack of conflict resolution. We could still see a lot more violent crime from this.
So, yeah, because I think that, a lot, moms demand action. They worked hard at this. I actually also think in our community, in the African American community, we did not get the full understanding of this. But I think that as things start to happen, people start to get a better understanding. Tell us something that we don't know about Chief Drake. That we know. If you all heard, Chief Drake does play golf. So he is a golf lover, which is also, I think people might say is different, because who will see the police chief out playing?
You know what? I love golf. I'm not very good at it now because I quit playing for a while, but I actually taught junior golf when I was in the police athletic league. And so had actually become pretty proficient with it. So I love sports. Football is first and foremost number one. When football season is over with, it's almost depressing because it's like, what comes next? I literally go through a kind of a down period. So I love that. I love having my Sundays. For me, that's the one day that I try to have for myself and my family. One thing that you don't know about me, and I mentioned it earlier, is that I cook. And I'm pretty decent at it. I won't say great. I'll let other people say that, but most people say it's really good. So every holiday, usually Christmas or something, I'll do a theme dinner, and so I've done Peruvian and Mexican and Italian and all that, and so this year I'm gonna try for Christmas to do a New Orleans style dinner with gumbo and jambalaya and the works.
I think one of our staff members, she might have a little course. She might have her finger raised. Lane Marks is from New Orleans, so you might want to get some tips.
I might want to connect with her.
Yeah, that's all right, for some gumbo.
I've never made gumbo, so I'm nervous about it. So I know you have to make the roux, you have to add everything hot, and it's a constant.
So I have some questions for you. I know one question had to do with promoting women in the force. You've already addressed that. I have a question. There has been a rash of race cars, car break-ins, shootings in East Nashville area, especially Shelby Avenue, South 5th and 9th. And so they want to know, what is the police department want to do? And I know everyone remember Chief Drake is from East Nashville, so sometimes that probably goes up. His antenna does go up. So I'll let you address some of those. And the race car situation still has to do with one question that I'm going to follow behind that too, is to talk about these car plate readers that's happening or in discussion with Metro Council. So go right ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is the race cars, and I don't know if people have been watching Fast and the Furious, and everybody wants to put loud exhaust on, and they want to fly around and do all kind of stuff. And so we've had some initiatives. We call it the Street Racer Initiative. And so we take a group of traffic officers and other officers, as well as aviation, and we've been able to cite and arrest individuals that are doing that. We've been able to gather intelligence of where cars are going to meet once they start. We've been able to enforce that and break it up. So it hasn't been as bad here lately as it was in the beginning. It still occurs, but it's just not as prevalent. We were seizing cars at one point. If you were part of a street racer initiative and you were racing, we seize your vehicle. And it's no greater loss than have your Corvette or BMW or whatever put on a record and towed away because you were racing. And then maybe if you're underage, you got to go tell mom and dad what happened. That's never fun. So we had that initiative. Car break-ins have been going on for quite some time. And really we've been trying to get the information out there for people not to leave valuables in the vehicles in sight. When people see a bag or some type of item in a car, they break the window to try to see what it is. Sometimes it's actually a wallet, sometimes it's a gun. But if you don't have anything on your seats, and usually if it's in the trunk or inside your home, they'll move on. There are the occasion where people will break the window anyway, just looking. But for the most part, they're just scanning, looking for items in plain view, or if you leave your vehicle unlocked, they just go through and pull on door handles. I actually had someone, I picked them up on my camera at my house, actually pulled on my door handle and had it on video. They were all covered up and all that because I was really trying to find out who they were, you know. But that's just what's going on in this community, is that a lot of them are young kids. They get in these cars looking for change. They get keys. Now they have a vehicle and a gun. They go around and they just hit neighborhoods. So securing valuables. And then if there's an opportunity to take prints, we want to be able to do that and see if we have our own crime lab. And if we can identify someone, then we can charge them as well.
I will say that last year, and actually that question was from Lenore White. And to talk about Shelby, last November, I was walking in Shelby Park. It was nice and warm, and my truck was broken into. My purse was actually hidden under stuff, but they did steal my purse. And I will say this, you know, the police officer that came and responded, and he did talk about the fact that it was closer to the holidays. But the funny part about it, it was a bunch of cars there, but there were 4 cars that were hit in a row. So I will say this, if you are an active jogger or a walker, that when you go, particularly as women, leave your purse at home. I got a fanny pack and I just carry it with me. So as Chief Drake just said, someone tried to break in his own car. We do advocate rings because, you know, the cameras do work. So Chief, let's talk about this too. We are, as we leave out of November, we are going to come up on an anniversary of nothing that no one expected last December on Christmas. So what have you learned from that? Is there any updates from the police department? And also special thanks to those 4 officers who were able to get downtown and get people out of harm's way.
Yeah, so I want to, if we could just back up real briefly on the license plate readers. I know you talked about that in the council. It's something that I adamantly support, and all it does is capture the license plate of a vehicle, not a person or anything like that. And it's a great tool. I feel like in the 21st century, to be able to be effective as a law enforcement agency, we have to use technology. And so with all these vehicles that are being stolen, in 1 week alone, we did an initiative going through areas where we know they drop off stolen vehicles. We were able to recover 65 vehicles and about 20 guns.
Mm.
These are stolen vehicles with guns in them. And so if we had license plate readers, as cars go through certain areas and it's stolen, then we can go through the dispatchers and identify that it really is a stolen vehicle and then make a stop before they go out and commit a violent crime. Or what if we have a child that's abducted and we need to try to find out where this car is going, and the license plate readers can help with that. Or a person that has Alzheimer's and they're just driving around, they're lost, they don't know where they're going, to be able to locate them, I think would be a great tool for us. It's not to surveil and what some people have said, and we're not going to have communications with ICE to deport people. That's just a myth. That's not true. It's just being able to use technology. Getting to the current question, last year in my nearly 34 years was one of the toughest years that I've seen. We had a tornado that just tore right through the city. We had a derecho. I was like, what is a derecho? Didn't even know what it was. Civil unrest, the pandemic just kept on going. I had a football coach who always say, do it wrong, do it long. And I would watch people that didn't get vaccinated, didn't want to wear masks. And it just seemed like this thing kept dragging on for nearly 2 years and it's still going. We're still seeing a slight uptick at this time. And I was thinking Christmas Day was going to be a day to spend at home with my family. And I got a call that morning. And I remember just laying there, staring at the ceiling, like, I know this is not happening. And so I immediately popped up, took about a 3-minute shower just to make sure people didn't say, "Woo, Chief," and so went downtown and I could not believe what I saw. It looked like someone had dropped a bomb out of an airplane. But fortunately, those 6 officers were able to respond. They really didn't care about themselves. They cared more about the people they were trying to serve and protect. They went through, knocked on doors, got people out, evacuated. And even when I went there, you could hear buildings sounding like they were about to crash down. We were running away from them thinking it was about to fall on us. Through all of that, we found that it was an individual that had been trying to make this bomb for almost 2 years, well, maybe a year. And he, had amassed through different areas, going to different hardware stores, picking up baking soda and alcohol and different ingredients to make this bomb. And why he picked Christmas Day is still beyond comprehension. But thankful, to me, he didn't want to hurt a lot of people. He really wanted to hurt himself. He had this belief in lizard people. I it was such thing that existed, and that maybe this would make it known that lizard people exist or something. I don't know, just something way far out there. A lot of lessons learned in the pre-investigation when officers went by, they knocked on his door. They tried to go several times they took a report. They talked to the FBI. I think what should have been done, and I'm pretty sure what should have been done, is all of those door knocks should have been documented to be able to say this is indeed what happened and that it wasn't committed to memory. And so now when we have those type of incidents, and we've had bomb threats for years, and now we have precinct detectives that will respond to follow up on these, to see what kind of information they can glean. We have a task force of our hazardous device unit, the FBI and the ATF, that comes together monthly to review all these cases to make sure they are on track and handled accordingly and properly. So we've taken the necessary steps to try to prevent these, but unfortunately, no matter what we do, there's always that individual that's gonna, if they're determined, it can happen. So we try to be as safe as possible.
I have a note from my president and CEO, Clifton Harris. He said, thank you for being our police chief. We appreciate you and your team for the service that you all have committed to Nashville, Davidson County. We're about 13 minutes to the hour. We know that Chief Drake has a long day before him. I don't know if you had your staff meeting already, but you probably have. One, you all will get a new police station in Antioch, a bigger and better, because Antioch has grown and has blossomed. And I know that Councilwoman Virtue will want me to make sure that I did state that, but because I do know that that is something that's near and dear to the community, as well as for as the community blossoms and so forth. What else is on your wish list, or some things that you would like to see evolve or added to for the police department, other than one, recruitment, adding more women, more people of color? And I will say this is that I know that also the increase of pay, because I know that that is probably something that you need to help bring more people to the police department. But also too, the other thing would be we need to also think about affordable housing. Your police officers need to be able to have a good house, but if they're able to have their own home and live in the community, it makes things safe. But what's on Chief Drake's wish list, and what you're hearing from your command that would be good, that we could take back to the mayor's office and to our elected officials?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for bringing up the 9th precinct. I think that's going to connect a very viable part of our community that feels like they need a little more service. I actually live in that community as well. I pass by where the new 9th precinct to be every day, and I'm looking forward to it coming on board. It's going to be state of the art. Has some really nice things that I hope the rest of the city, rest of the country will look at and say, hey, this is how a police precinct should be. Pay is definitely one. We've actually had officers that had resigned or left the department, and trying to lure them back. We have had some to come back, but then we had employers from the private sector that paid them more than what they would make as a police officer. And they say, it just wouldn't make sense for me to come back. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a big challenge as Oracle and Amazon and some of these other big companies come on board. And these officers will look at it and say, hey, do I deal with all of the scrutiny as a police officer, or do I go and work and make more money and don't have to worry about sometimes the villainization by the media, sometimes getting shot at it, and all those things. So being able to compete that way, being able to give officers incentives for going above and beyond the call of duty is something that I'm looking at. There's a group that's wanting to start a police foundation. I'm in support of it. And the police foundation will be a company run by the community. It won't be a branch of the police department. And they'll take funding to be able to help with different services, whether it's to help with the Police Activities League. I want to start a program called Hope, because I think that's what kids are missing today is hope, and how we can interact with them, bring them in line with the community, meet people like members of the Urban League, the professional community as mentors, because you are what you see. I grew up in an area where I saw people doing the wrong things, and I was thinking, well, that's how I'm going to make it in life too, because that's what you see. But when you start having people tell you, this is a better way, this is a better path, I think that's going to help. Housing, we're probably 50-50 as far as officers living in county and out of county. But just face it, living here in Nashville and affordable housing, it's I don't even know if it is affordable housing here in Nashville. I've recently looked at maybe buying another home, and everything I looked at was, it's crazy, the amounts. And then if someone wants, say, $500,000 for a home and list it, and then someone to come in and bid $600,000, And you're like, wow. And they waive the inspection as pass fail, so it doesn't matter about the inspection. And so it's really difficult right now. And so being able to have affordable housing would put more officers in living in the community. I think it would be essential as well. And just, you mentioned it, but I can't let it go. But growing the department is something that's vital. This city continues to grow. It's booming. I have friends that come in town all the time, and they want to live here. They want to move here and be a part of it. Someone want to go down on Broadway. I told them, if you're in Nashville, and you don't go down on Broadway, but have fun, and I'll catch you after. But people love it, and but as this city grows, so will the needs, and we need to be able to meet those needs.
So, as you stated, you have friends and family who come to town. When they come, where do you tell them to go? Like, what's the best place that you, because you are a cook, which means that you also means that you're a foodie and you know the best places to go. So what are some of the best places you tell them to go eat?
All right, that's very, very good. And I don't want to, it may make some people upset because there's a lot of businesses, people that like me, but I tell friends and family, you have Eddie V's, which is at Fifth and Broad. Try that out. It's really one of the best steaks I've had in Nashville. They have a crab fried rice, and I've never had crab fried rice, but it is excellent. It makes you want to take some home for leftovers. I mean, it's that good. They have lobster mashed potatoes. It's just amazing. I mean, just stuff you haven't heard of is great. Kane Prime, Jeff Ruby's, and then the rooftops. The W is on board now, Grand Hyatt. It's others. Hit those, and then the Gulch. I've always liked the Gulch, and so I'll stop there. But that's where I tell people to go.
So, I want to tell you thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. I may not have been able to ask you everything. I know that after the first of the year, we'll bring you back maybe like in March to kind of start off the first quarter. And so everyone, please don't be mad at me if I did not answer. I will tell you this, I spent the weekend doing some reading, but I wanted to make sure that I hit on an array of points. The Urban League is here to always be a partner with Chief Drake and with the Nashville Metro Police Department. We don't always see eye to eye. And, and we've shared those questions and concerns with Chief Drake, and we will always take them to him. Our president and CEO will always reach out. But we want you to know is that as much as we can to help you to bridge a gap between you, your office and the police force in this community, we want to be here. I will say this is that because you are still trying to promote and push and conversation about COVID, I will reach out to Debbie. I have a COVID project, so maybe we can figure out some conversations. And I actually have a hand raised from one of my board members, which is Grant Renrow. And Grant, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go right ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask the chief your question. Or did you not mean to? Maybe he didn't mean to hold his hand up. So
yeah. So when you said, we don't always see eye to eye, that's true. And I love that aspect. And I love that communication between myself and the Urban League and our police department. I think what we're seeing locally and even nationally is that it's not okay to disagree anymore with people. It's like you have to be enemies. I like the fact that we may not see eye to eye, but we come together for the common purpose of making Nashville better and making it better for our urban community and people that we serve. And so any partnerships we can do with you all, would love to do it. Anytime you want me to come back, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it after I play golf with Clifton, and maybe I can say I beat him or he can say he beat me, but maybe we can conversate about that a little bit too. I tell you what, I'm going to start a violent crimes division. That's going to be new because I feel like we need to have a major focus, even more so. We started a robbery initiative, and we were able to arrest several individuals that had been out committing robberies, some of them serial robbers. we had an individual last week that went on a rampage, and in less than 24 hours, he committed 15 robberies all over Nashville. He was just carjacking people at gunpoint, taking their vehicles, going to rob a business, doing other things, and we're able to take him into custody. The same day, we took another group of individuals that were robbing MAPCOs. They had robbed 4 MAPCOs. And so just trying to deal with that. I think the partnership with the Urban League is there. I tell people there's a tale between 2 Nashvilles. There's a Nashville that's doing very, very well. People are really happy with the progress. Then there's a segment that's really struggling here. They're trying to make ends meet financially. They're trying to keep food on the table. They don't have the financial means, or really the food shortage is starting to come into play now. And so people are really feeling hopeless, and whatever we can do to partner to provide meals, to a sense of hope for people, we want to be able to do it. And if that's in connection with the Urban League, we'd love to be a partner with you.
Well, I have an idea, so I'll reach out to Debbie. Chief Drake, thank you. Please be safe always. That's mentally, that's physically, that's emotionally. We know that this job does take a toll on you, your family, and your police force. And we want you to know that we are always here for you. Call us, call Clifton. I'll make sure he shoots you a text before the day is out. So if it's a chat that you all need to get started. And I appreciate the time you have given us. I'm gonna give you back 2 minutes.
Okay, all right.
Everyone, thank you. If you have any questions for me, you can email me at connect@umlt.org. If you are not a member of the Urban League, we encourage you to be a member. Again, this Thursday, I will be back at 11 o'clock with Alicia Haddock from the Housing Fund. We're gonna get into the conversation I kind of started with Chief Drake about affordable housing, but also so you can learn more about the Housing Resiliency Fund. And please continue to watch the Urban League. We have so many things happening. The year's not over, so which means is that we still have time this year to empower this community and to change lives. Thanks, Chief Drake. Have a good day. And thank you, Debbie.
Thank you so much. And everyone have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you. I look forward to hearing how that gumbo turns out.
I will. I'll let you know.